Welcome. In this video, we're going to complete the fine-tuning aspects of your bow setup. We're going to take it from the point where Rodney shot his last arrow, and we are going to make fine adjustments to your bow setup. Okay, before I start bare shaft tuning, I get my bow set up with how I'm going to hunt with it. That means I have a bow quiver on, if I use a bow quiver. I put arrows in the bow quiver, so I've got the arrow weight there. I have the bow pretty well set up exactly the way that I hunt with it before I start to tune. Another thing that I do is I make sure that my nocks are not too tight. You want your nock to grip the string tight enough to where it will hang by its own weight, but not so tight that just a tiny bit of pressure releases the nock, and that would be perfect. Doing that, if you take the time to fine-tune your arrows to that bow, you are going to greatly improve your accuracy. I can't stress that enough. And go through each and every segment that I'm about to show you until you get that perfect arrow flight out of that bow. Also, you want to set the brace height of your bow to the manufacturer, the bowyer's recommendation. Set that height where it's supposed to be by the bowyer, and you can adjust to the sweet spot later on for your individual taste. So we're going to start with pretty much a full-length shaft that is close to being to the proper spine for this bow, and I'm going to show you what I do to start the process. I like to start the tuning process by shooting a bare shaft with the exact grain weight feel point that I use for my broadheads into a bag target. The reason I do that is a bag target doesn't try to straighten your arrow out, and it's much more likely to give you an accurate picture of exactly how your arrows are entering the target by not self-correcting. I start from a distance of about 10 yards and shoot into the bag, and what I'm looking for, hopefully, right off the bat, is tail left. I want to see the arrow enter tail left because that's correctable by shortening the length of your arrow, and I'll show you how you do that. And you can see the arrow is extremely tail left upon entering the target. That indicates too weak of a spine. So I'm going to show you how we correct that a little bit at a time. And what we're trying to do is bring that end of the arrow over to the right until it is entering the target without any fletching, perfectly straight. I'm going to be using a cutoff tool and that. Taking a 1/4 inch of an arrow length off at a time does wonders for making that spine stiffer. So test each shot a couple of times before you cut any more off. Okay, my arrow is still tail left, not quite as much as it was before, but it's still tail left. I'm going to take a little more off the arrow, maybe about a 1/2 inch this time, but no more. As you can see, my arrow's still tail left, so we're going to continue to remove material off the end and shorten that shaft to stiffen that spine to bring that arrow end closer to center. I have taken off probably 1.75 inches of this shaft to get the tail left completely out of the arrow, and the last arrow that I shot was almost perfect. Notice that I said almost perfect. We don't want to settle for that. We want it perfect. So I've taken another 1/4 inch off this shaft. I'm going to shoot again. No tail left. So now we know that we've cut enough off and we have the correct spine of the arrow now. If you do start to get tail right, you can always decrease your spine or weaken your arrow by adding point weight. Now we'll get into the paper tuning aspect. Now I've taken that same bare shaft and I have fletched it, Got the exact same grain weight of fill point on here that I use for my broadhead, which in this case is 250 grains. And I also use all of the insert that Rodney mentioned in that first video for increased forward of center. We both believe in a lot of FOC. Makes a big difference. So now we're going to shoot our fletched, cut properly shaft through paper. And I'll show you how we do that. Paper will not lie. It won't trick your eyes. Sometimes when you try to do this by yourself, your eyes will play tricks on you and you're thinking you're shooting a perfect arrow when in fact you may not be shooting exactly perfect. So front is nothing more than some stakes pushed out apart with some thin brown paper placed in the middle and pulled fairly taut, so I can shoot through the paper and into the bag target safely. I try to shoot pretty close to the same angle, high and low, that I'm shooting, and that helps me read the paper just that much better. So this is the way that I start. Again, I shoot from just about 8 to 10 yards. Okay, the tear is indicating to me that I have no right or no left tear in the paper, but I do have a tail high situation because the knock set is too high. So I'm going to lower my knock set and shoot again. All right. That is exactly what we're looking for. A small hole, neither up or down elongated, and neither left nor right. It's got a hole with 3 slits that the feathers have made as they went through. That arrow is going through absolutely perfect. You want to have absolutely perfect. And what that's telling you is that every bit of the energy from your bow is being transmitted in a straight line to the front of that arrow. Not wasted momentum left, right, up, or down in any kind of a wobble. And all of your energy is going forward and into the point, which is exactly what you want for enhanced penetration, even out of lighter bows. Now you may not be able to get perfect arrow flight this quickly, like I did. I was lucky today. Don't settle for anything else. You want perfect arrow flight out of your bow. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to the critters that you're hunting. Remember that if it's tearing the paper to the left, it's not lying, and you can shorten your shaft to increase the spine to bring that arrow back to the right. If it's pulling to the right, the only thing that you can do is add more point weight to decrease the spine and bring your arrow back around straighter. And of course, up and down, that's nothing more than your knock point. I would also caution you that before you start tuning, make certain that you yourself are warmed up and shooting properly. Don't go out cold. Shoot a few arrows. Shoot until you feel comfortable that you're shooting well before you start tuning. Otherwise, you're kind of defeating your purpose because you're trying to tune maybe a bad release out of your arrow when your arrow is not the problem at all. Recently, I couldn't quite get knock high out of my arrow no matter how much I lowered my knocking point, and it was driving me nuts. And then I went ahead and I rotated my knock a little bit to see if I couldn't get a little more feather clearance from my bow. And a 1/4 of an inch of a turn, maybe even less, suddenly it was right there. No more knock high. So don't be afraid to try things like adjusting your knock, twisting your knock, left or right, to enhance your feather clearance out of your bow. Our intention in making this tuning video was to basically simplify or take out the mystery in tuning your bow and arrow setup, and I hope we've done that for you. Remember, Take your time, pick a day when you can devote the time necessary to do this correctly. Shoot a few arrows to warm up before you begin. Shoot an arrow at least 2 to 3 times before you make any changes. And don't settle for close or good enough. You want to have your setup perfect. A perfectly set up and tuned combination will be more forgiving when you don't shoot perfectly. Our next video will show hunting practice tips and shooting tips for the serious, complete bow hunter. God bless all of you, and good hunting.